This is my grandpa, Malcolm Cobrink, and I'll be interviewing him for the Eyewitness to History project. Um, when were you born?
I was born February 14th, 1930,
So, how old are you?
86.
86. What was school like during your childhood?
School in New York City was a drudgery.
So,
And by that I mean I had to walk to junior high school, which was about a half a mile away, in snow, sleet, hail, and sunshine.
does not sound fun.
Wait, the nearest library was about a mile away, and I used to walk up a steep hill so I could get to the library to do research and borrow books. Truth.
So, where in New York did you grow up?
I grew up in the borough of the Bronx, 10 city blocks from Yankee Stadium,
Did you watch baseball all the time?
all the time,
Did you go to the stadium?
a lot.
A lot.
I went a lot because in the summertime they used to admit children free.
Yeah. What was it like moving across the country with a young family?
I moved to California in 1960 when I was 30 years old and had one child who was 5 weeks old. I moved here because in New York City I worked for a man who was now working in California, and he offered me a job in California if I would move.
What was that job?
The job reflected a big improvement in both responsibility and opportunity. At the time, I was living in a tenement, a one-bedroom tenement in Manhattan overlooking an alley. And I thought this would be an opportunity to improve my family's existence.
Did you start your own business after that job, or was that the only job when you moved here?
No, I held that job for several years until 1967, but in the interim, the change in lifestyles between having spent the first 30 years of my life in New York City and then moving to California was dramatic. California was very dull and uninteresting compared with the hubbub of daily living in New York City. As a result, when I was working for a company called Hunt Foods in Fullerton, California, my wife became intrigued with a laundromat she used to go to. I contacted the owner of the laundromat, and he turned out to be an ex-New Yorker who put us into the laundromat business at night after I got finished working at Hunt Foods, and my wife would take care of the laundromats. It was all Sally's idea.
So let's take it back a little farther in time, and can you describe how the Depression was of 1929?
The Depression was a way of life experienced by everybody. So it wasn't that I suffered more than others. We all had the same experiences. One of a couple of my things that I remember were, one, we ate a lot of pasta and potatoes, and number two, I can well remember walking in shoes that had holes in them, and I would use cardboard to keep the water out of my shoes. But everyone did that.
Not sure the cardboard held up very well.
I would just replace the cardboard.
So What historical events do you remember, if any? Can you explain?
The first historical event I remember was September 1st, 1939, when the Germans on a Sunday marched into Poland. Being Jewish, I understood the dramatic effect this would have on Polish Jews and the fact that the world was now in flames. Also in 1941, I remember that Joe DiMaggio, who played center field for the New York Yankees, set a record that still stands today, 75 years later, of having hit in 56 consecutive baseball games.
It's crazy.
You want some more?
Sure.
I also remember December 7th, 1941, when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor and thrust the United States into the war. And Pearl Harbor could have been on the moon for all I knew about Hawaiian Islands and anything west of the Hudson River.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you.
That's all you want to know?
Mm-hmm.
That's